Well, there was two people working on it. There was a fellow named Andy Gaskell and another one named Tom Enriquez. And Andy and Tom were both like terrific artists. In fact, Tom designed the original logo of Ghostbusters. The
Ooh.
character with the little, nose sign on it and everything. That was him. He was great. We got to share a room together on Lion King. He's a wonderful artist and all. Originally, he was going to be called the original name of the when I first started doing the movie was called King of the Jungle.
Oh yeah, I got
Yeah,
that on my question, but I wonder what prompted that to change the title.
yeah. Well, that's because we usually when you start a movie, you do a research trip. So, like when we did Beauty and the Beast, we went to France and looked at all the great chateaus, all the great castles and things, and got inspiration for what we're going to do. And when I did Mulan, there was a whole crew went to China and looked at everything was there. So the crew that went to Kenya, Nigeria, to check for Lion King, found out that lions don't live in the jungle. They live in grasslands in savannah. So it's technically called King of the Veldt, which just doesn't sound as good as King of the Jungle. So then we just went to Lion King. We said, okay, that's better. We'll do
Okay.
it that. Mhm. Yeah, well, they wanted, like our head of production, like our head producer Jeffrey Katzenberg, was very tight with David Geffen, who was a top music agent representing Donna Summer and a lot of other famous singers, and they wanted to do something with Elton John for a long time, and Elton did some beautiful work. The interesting thing too is that a lot of the African motif, a lot of the African sounds and all came out of Hans Zimmer because Hans had done a film before Lion King called The Power of One, which was a movie that's set in South Africa. And it used a lot of Zulu chorus and a lot of local musicians and all. And Hans was the one who brought in all that African percussion, Ladysmith Black Mambazo, and the Zulu choruses and all, and sort of beefed it up Delton's stuff. Because when I was storyboarding, on Elton's music, all we had to go on was a cassette of Elton at a keyboard. So it was just Elton alone, you know, just playing the notes, going, "When the day we arrive on the planet," like that, and it was just him, with no backup or anything. And then later, Hans brought in all that African, choruses and percussion and everything. And I remember when we saw the finish of the opening number, Circle of Life, all our jaws dropped. We were like, "Wow, this is damn good." I think everybody was surprised. Maybe the directors were it, but we were all like, "Wow." you know.
Turns out there were technical problems in the wildebeest sequence, and they wanted to try to get the CG effects right. And
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, that's the first time. Yeah, because you got to remember, like nowadays, all the when you see effects in Lord of the Rings or in or like the House of the Dragon or something, and you see thousands of soldiers and thousands of people running around. That software was created in 2001. It's a software called Massive. It was created for the original Lord of the Rings. Before that, when you had to do large crowds of people, you had to animate them one by one. Or if you're doing live action, you have to find a fascist army with nothing to do. like and hire them, like Spain or like Russia, the Soviet Union used to have a whole brigade of cavalry whose only job was to do movies. So to say, okay, now you're going to be Apaches. Now you're going to be Mongols. Now you're going to be, Napoleon soldiers. So
uh,
they would just put different uniform. But when we were doing Lion King in 1994, it was a new technology to sort of create this sort of digital, these digital avatars that could be repeated and repeated, so you could have like hundreds of wildebeest stampeding. And the guys who did it, I know one of them was Scott Johnston and another fellow did some beautiful work, but they had to design the software so that you could create this thing. Because as soon as the audience is aware, like when the audience is aware an effect is an effect, it's a failure. Really good effects you don't notice. It just looks natural. And that's what they were trying to do is they were trying to create the thing, make the thing be natural. The other thing about the release too that was interesting up until Lion King, Disney's had gone into a thing about, when you release a movie, there's a whole strategy to it. There are executives who do nothing but figure out when to release a movie. And generally, the movies that you're really high about, like you really think are going to do really well, you release around the 4th of July. It's always like the last week of June, the first week of July. That's the peak vacation season. Everybody's off school, everybody's off on breaks, and they have a lot of time and they want to go to the movies. It's cool and all. Movies you don't have a lot of faith in, you don't think you're going to do very well. That's like February.
I know
Look at
about
that.
that.
Yeah, it's like the serious movies that you think you're going to get Oscars and stuff. That's Christmas time, so that's like around Thanksgiving, you
Yeah.
know. And there was Disney's had fallen into this habit around the time of in the late '80s of doing their releases right around the week before Thanksgiving and getting the holiday market. So Little Mermaid and Beauty and the Beast and all of those were all like Thanksgiving releases. Generally, it was about November 18th, which is the anniversary of Steamboat Willie. So it's like sort of it's a good luck charm that way. Lion King was the first one where they decided they were going to do a summer release. And it's like we're going to go back to summer releases now. And like, oh, okay. And then the other thing what they used to do with releases is they would do like in the old days when I was a child, they would do first run release, which is just New York and Hollywood and maybe Washington. Then they do general release, which is the United States. Then about 6 months later to a year later, then they release overseas. So anything that people are watching here now, they're going to see in Europe, 6 months from now. Lion King was one of the first ones where they released all around the world at the same time. So they
Wow.
so they opened up around the world at the same time as they were doing it here, and it did very well for them. And it became a monster hit. But it's a gamble too because if it fails, like that could happen.